My name is Jenay Manley, and I'm running for Kansas City City Council in the 2nd District at large. So the first plank is I believe everyone should have access to safe, accessible, truly, and permanently affordable housing. I also want to see us do an overhaul of our tax incentive policies so that it is reflective of economic justice and the things that people need in our communities. And then finally, I believe that actually one of the most important pieces of my platform is this idea called co-governance. What that means is the people closest to the problems are closest to the solution, and we should actually be having them lead the way in how we find solutions for our community. The people in our communities actually, they live here, they're dealing with the issues, they're also finding ways to navigate the issues, and if we start building with them, we can find solutions that meet the needs of all of us. Yeah, so first I was born and raised in the Northland of Kansas City. I was raised by a single mom, and I, at 21, became a single mom of my twins, Lily and Avery. And for the first 5 years of their lives, I really struggled. I was a broke single mom who worked at Applebee's and then on the overnight shift at Quick Trip, and it didn't matter how much I worked or how much I donated plasma. I actually just couldn't meet my kids' needs, and it put us in really unsafe situations. And about 3 years ago, so when they were about 5, I joined the citywide tenant union, KC Tenants, and I started building power with my neighbors. What I learned is that the problems I was facing every day were not just my problems. They were the problems of so many of us in Kansas City, whether it's a single mom, whether it's a single dad, whether it's a grandma, like so many poor and working class people in our city are struggling to get by. And so I started building power with my neighbors because I realized that I can't do it alone. I can't make my kids' lives better alone. And what I found as I knocked on neighbors' doors was the issues are bigger than housing. We are dealing with healthcare issues. We are dealing with issues around education. We are dealing with issues around how we get around in our city. And while housing was the biggest issue for me, if we are really going to create a Kansas City where every single person gets to thrive, we need to be talking about our issues on a bigger scale than one individual issue. And that's why I decided to run for city council. Because yes, I believe housing is a huge issue in my life, but that is not the only issue that I face or my neighbors face every day. I think the first goal for me is building alongside people. We've spent a lot of time passing policy in our city, but not implementing it in a way that actually meets the needs of the people. And I think when we talk about the policies that we've passed, we actually have to go back to the community and look for the ways that that should be implemented. So I want to see that happen. Another goal I have for being in city council is shifting the narrative about what it means to be from the Northland and recognize myself as a Kansas Citian, right? So I was born and raised in the Northland. I love the Northland, but a lot of the conversation around the Northland talks about how in the Northland we are rich, white, and conservative. I'm not rich, white, or conservative. What I am is a single mom trying to make it. And what I've learned is I have more in common with my neighbors, whether they're in the Northland, in the East Side, in South Kansas City, than I do in differences. And if we actually start to get to know one another, we can build a Kansas City that's different. So I have a goal of really creating a conversation about what it means to be from the Northland, and also know that this city, everywhere in this city, deserves an opportunity to build and to create a beautiful life, right? Another goal I have being in city council is being accountable to people. I mean, I think that goes back to the co-governance and implementation, right? We pass a lot of policy, but it's also really hard for people like me, people like the neighbors that I knock on their doors, to believe that this city works for them, right? And I think we see that a lot on even the campaign trail, where people say, oh yeah, I don't vote in city elections. I don't like politics, right? And the way that I engaged with politics before ever thinking about running for city council was about housing. It was about organizing for my kids' lives, right? And I think as a city council member, one thing I want to do is really get to the real issues that people are talking about, not for a vote, but for the city to change, for people to understand that city council elections, city council members can and should change our lives in a way that makes them better, right? But it doesn't take them representing us. What it really takes is us deciding that they are accountable to us. I want to tell you a story about organizing. So during the Tenants Bill of Rights campaign in 2019, when I was with KC Tenants, the city council actually took out the ban on source of income discrimination. And at that time, I was actually living on Section 8. And a lot of us in the base, a lot of us in the KC Tenants organization were struggling. Like, do we want to support this policy, right? They took out the ban on source of income. They took out our guaranteed right to counsel in the Tenants' Bill of Rights. And we went back and forth for hours talking about it. And what was beautiful to me was we actually stopped and said, if you are on a Section 8 voucher, we actually want you to speak first, right? We want to start with you so that we can start building towards a solution. People like me, people like a leader named James Owen, we decided that we couldn't give up a Tenants' Bill of Rights for the ban on source of income discrimination. And we talked to the people, our neighbors sitting right next to us, and we were like, yes, we need a ban on source of income discrimination. I need that as a mom, right? But what I know is we actually can't win a ban on source of income discrimination if we don't win a Tenants' Bill of Rights first, and this will keep people safe in their homes. Even if it's not me, this will keep some of our neighbors safe. And I know because of that conversation that we're gonna come back for the things I need, right? Because our neighbors decided to let the people who are most impacted speak first and lead that conversation. I trusted them to be able to come back for the ordinances that I needed, right? For the policy that I needed. And what we saw last year was we came back for one of those policies. It was the right to counsel. It was a guaranteed right to counsel. That was cut in 2019. But the leaders in KC Tenants' base had made a commitment in 2019 to come back for policy that would change our lives. And because it was led by the people most impacted, we actually were able to do that. And to me, that's how we actually uplift the culture of commuting, of creating accountability for community, ensuring diversity and equity. It starts by centering the people who are most impacted. That does not mean those are the only people in the room or the only people making decisions. It means that we start with the people who are most impacted by a policy, by a decision being made. We ask them what they need, how we get to what they need, right? And then we have a broader conversation. And the beauty of that is, like, that does not mean that we will win everything we need today. What it does mean is we will be bringing our people alongside us every step of the way and looking for solutions that really meet our needs. And I think that's how we promote those types of things, right? It's not just saying, oh, we brought poor people in the room or Black people in the room. It's no. We allowed them, or we ensured that they actually had a voice in leading the strategy to make sure that they got what they needed and that we all get what we need. And yeah, I think I do that every day. I think that I've learned that from KC Tenants, and I continue to learn that as I watch their organizing, as I watch organizing across the city. Yeah, so I was telling you that you are the first person who has ever asked me that question, and it was really good because it allowed me to lay out a timeline of the city council, right? So I think in the first 30 days, what I want to see happen is we are coming in with a new city council. We should actually be having a conversation around how our committee and council meetings are heard, right? I think we should have 2 weeks before any kind of policy is discussed so that people have enough time to take off work to come to give testimony if that's what they want to do, right? To give feedback on policy, to meet with city council members before it's talked about during committee. I also think we should change those committee times. Right now they happen in the middle of the day on a Wednesday. I worked full time. For most of my organizing, I was working other jobs. So I didn't have time to be watching committee hearings. I had to watch them in the middle of the night while my kids were asleep. That's not right. It's not only not right, but it was already too late for me to give testimony, right? So we should change the time of those meetings, and we should make sure that people have adequate time to take off work. And I think we should do that in the first 30 days because we're coming in with a new council and we can start new practices, right? And then in 60 days, I actually want to see us revamp our tax incentive policy. So we actually have started a lot of that work through the Advanced KC scorecard. And I think that's really great. I want to see us go back to that conversation and bring that conversation more public facing, right? I think when we talk about public dollars and what they should go to, they should go to public goods. Right? So if someone is getting a tax incentive in our city, not only should they be guaranteeing that the people who are building those projects are union workers, but for the life of the project, the people who are getting maintenance updates, the people who are cleaning the buildings, the people who are doing all of that work should be union workers. That is how we build a better Kansas City. If those projects are housing, it should be for truly affordable housing for the people who live in our city, right? The other thing I want to see with that tax incentive policy is if we're creating community spaces, they should be for the communities that have been historically disincentivized from in our city, and ensuring that they have what they need, ensuring that the people in Kansas City who live here today, who have been building up the city, creating the culture that we love in Kansas City, are the people who are prioritized when we create community spaces, when we create housing, when we create all of these different things. If we're going to build in our city, let's build in a way that meets the needs of the people who live here today. So that is the second priority, or the 60-day goal, and then the 90-day goal. So 90 days, we're in the fall. That's when the city budget actually kicks off. So a lot of what we see as community members, as people who live in this city, is the budget happening in January and February, and then we have a huge public engagement process. What we don't see is that our city manager is actually having conversations with the different departments starting in November, right? So he's going to the departments and asking them questions, right? I actually want to see the public start engaging in that process, us having a public conversation about how money was spent. Was it spent well? Did it meet the needs of the people who live here, right? We know that we have a healthy homes ordinance. I think we should be having a conversation about, is healthy homes, before we refund it, is that actually meeting our needs? And if not, what do we need to do? The Office of the Tenant Advocate, is the Office of the Tenant Advocate fully funded? Yes. Is it fully staffed? No, right? Is it meeting the needs of the people who are calling the Office of the Tenant Advocate? I would say not, right? The Climate Resiliency Plan, that should be funded in our city budget, but first we need to know what is happening. It's not just a resolution, it needs to be an ordinance, right? So all of these things are happening in budget conversations. I think those conversations in November, where the city manager is talking to the different departments, should be public conversations where the public can give feedback. And I think that's the perfect time to have that conversation because it's happening already. Instead, and then after we have those public conversations, the people are involved in it, then the city manager should bring a proposal to the city council to say, here's how we need to fund our city based on what the department said, based on what the people said. Bring that proposal to city council in January like we do now, and then have another robust public engagement process where we give feedback on what the city manager proposed, right? Right now, we are giving that feedback after the proposal is already out there. We have to go through 500 pages of a city budget to figure out what is going on in our city, and we don't even get an opportunity to know what happened last year. So in 90 days, I really think we should actually be having a conversation about that robust public engagement process. I want to name that all three of these different priorities and this timeline are about co-governance. They are about public engagement and ensuring that the people of Kansas City have agency and decision-making power across the city. We can't just pass policy and have good headlines. What we need is good implementation. What we need is a robust public engagement process that ensures that people are telling us what they need, what's working, what's not working, who got to be in the room, who didn't, and how do we make that better for the people who live here.